Hi, good morning. Welcome to Tea Time with Mel. My name is Mel Perry. I'm a military lifestyle mentor. This means that I help women in the military community find more joy and gratitude and less stress and resentment in this crazy, unique lifestyle. Today is Tuesday, November 5th, and today we are talking about kids and morning chaos. If you like what I'm going to say, if you love my stuff, please head on over to my website, thisdandelionlife.com, and click Work with Mel. Add yourself to the info list for season 2 of my online group mentorship program for women in the military community. It's not happening till January, and you don't have to commit to signing up, but if you just want to stay in the loop and get some information, add your name to the list because we are having a great time. We're in season 1 right now, and the girls are really learning, sharing, growing already, and we're just in the beginning of week 2. So it is worth checking out. All right, today we're talking about kids and morning chaos. So this conversation is coming out of a previous conversation that I had with one of the students inside my program yesterday. And we were talking about kids and the importance of routine and structure. And we got talking about the morning and trying to get ready for school. And as a previous school teacher, she has all the tools. She is like organizer extraordinaire and was still really struggling with getting the kids out the door. And I can relate because I'm also a past school teacher. I also have things all organized and ready to go. And I also used to really struggle with just the last 5 minutes of getting out the door. There were pockets of time throughout the morning that could always be stressful, but the last 5-10 minutes always seemed to be the worst. And I was so proud of myself. I front loaded my morning, which I'll tell you what that means in just a hot second. I was prepared, and we still had this rush, and here I am sending my kids out the door to school, and the last thing that they see from me is like, come on, hurry, let's go, the bus is coming. Like, that's not a great way to start the day. That's not a great way for me to leave them all day. I'd be like, I could have done that better, but I didn't really know how, and I really thought that the responsibility for this chaos laid on the shoulders of my kids. Now, at this time, this was really last year that I honed in on this problem we were having. And so Rylan, my youngest, was just in preschool a few days a week, and it was really the big one, Lucas, that we had to get out the door on time for the bus. And so, perhaps it was, no, not even perhaps, it was unfair of me to assume that our failures in the morning were their responsibility, because ultimately they're just kids and they're only doing what I have taught them to do. And so I spent a good bit of time reflecting and trying to figure out what I could do to minimize this rush, this chaos, this stress. And when I really thought about it, I discovered that it was my fault, that it was me. And I don't say that to be self-deprecating, but really the responsibility laid on my shoulders. And where I was going wrong was, despite all of the preparation I was doing, my expectations for what they could and would do independently were really unfair. And that was the issue. I was expecting them to be more independent than they were capable of being at that time. And by at that time, I mean both age-wise, but also, there are certain skills that your kids can do. That they can perhaps make their bed because you've shown them how to do it. But, sometimes it's like when you're dog training. Okay. So like, humor me for a second. When you're training a dog to lie down, first, when you train, and I'm not saying that your kids are dogs, I promise, but just bear with me. So first you teach the dog to lie down, and they can, but they'll only be able to do it like in the same setting that you taught them in. And then eventually, as that skill becomes really concretely learned, then it becomes a generalized skill, which means the dog can do it anytime, any place. So you'll know if you've ever trained a dog to do, to sit. They can do it at home, but if you're at the dog park, they won't do it. They haven't generalized the skill and mastered it in all areas. So going back to your kids, it's the same thing. Maybe they can make their bed on the weekend when there's no time constraint and they've all the, time in the world, and they can really get distracted, doesn't matter, it'll get done, but maybe it's not a concretely mastered skill that they can do when there's a time restraint and maybe they're thinking about the day ahead, etc. So I realized I needed to do some more scaffolding for my kids. And scaffolding is a term that I'm borrowing from the teaching world, and what it means is that the end goal is for a child to independently do any given skill. But in order to get them there, you have to work backwards, and you have to build a scaffold of helping them and teaching them. And that means that you begin at the very beginning where you do the skill for them and you show them what you're doing. And then after a couple of times, you do it together. And then you are gradually releasing your responsibility in the role until eventually they're able to do it independently. And if you notice that they're not doing it independently, you need to put some scaffolding back in until they can. So for our family, what that looks like is when it comes to making their beds, literally that example. So at the beginning, I did it for them, then we did it together, and then now they can do it independently over time. My big one, Lucas, still needs reminders sometimes. Rylan, the younger one, has it sorted out, and he takes pride in doing a nice job, which is an extra bonus. Other things, I don't have any immediate plans of taking that scaffolding away because it's not in my own best interest or that of the kids. So another example, I go ahead and put their toothpaste on their toothbrushes for them. Yep, I do. Are they old enough to do it by themselves? Certainly. But is there going to be toothpaste on the walls also at least half the time? Absolutely. And that's not something that I want to clean up on a daily basis or even a somewhat weekly basis. So I want to enable them to be successful and independent. So I do that little piece for them. And really figuring out like what battles I wanted to fight and which ones I didn't was instrumental in minimizing the chaos. So, it really came down to those two key pieces of me. The two key pieces of minimizing our morning stress were, one, front load as much as possible. And I'm not talking about laundry. Sorry about the dog barking there. I'm not talking about laundry. I'm talking about doing as much as you can in advance and like front loading. So if you think about like, what can you do the night before? What can you do before they get up? What can you do while they're eating breakfast? What can you do while they're upstairs making their bed? What are you doing? I really had to let go of thinking that I could sit down with tea in one hand and my iPhone in another and just chill while they were having breakfast and then pack it all in at the end. In the moment, it was like, this is great, slow wake up, enjoying my chai, check in my social media, and then I regretted it every single day. So I had to have the discipline to like get up, have my shower, like do all those things first so that I could be more around and more present so that if they get off track, which they absolutely do many times every day, I'm there to immediately guide them back instead of, we're leaving in 10 minutes. Oh my gosh, you're not dressed. You haven't done anything yet. So, front loading and adjusting my expectations were the two things that really, really made a big difference, as a big difference for me. And I also try to give them as much time as possible. So I give us at the moment, like 10 minutes just to put on like a fall jacket and boots. Because I'd rather be early for school than consistently late. How long does it actually take them to put on fall jackets and boots? Like maybe 2 minutes. I literally give us 10 every day. So if you can, just give yourself those like time buffers. And then if they want to stop and look at worms, or they want to stop because they've, found a cool leaf, you've built in that buffer time. So like our school, the supervision starts at 9 and the bell rings at 9:15. We aim to be there for 9 every day because that's a built-in 15-minute buffer. And I don't feel like we're going to miss school, we're going to be late. So that's really helpful. If you're working, like I was working full time last year, of course, the mornings looked a little different, but the overall idea of like really front loading as much as I could and enabling them to be independent to a degree. And their independence was not as important to me when we had to be up and out the door at 6:20 with everybody dressed, fed, teeth brushed, etc. So, pick your battles. Like, what are you willing to fight for with them doing by themselves, and what's not as important? And that's maybe something they do independently on the weekend or in the evening. So I hope that it has been helpful to you to hear about how I have managed our mornings to minimize our stress and chaos. One of the students inside my program, this Dandelion Life, the one I mentioned earlier, I was able to give her some really individualized advice about her morning. So we looked at how many kids she had and like the arrangement of her home and where they had their stuff and some group motivation systems. And today she implemented the new system. I'm going to check in with her in a shortly and see how it went. But she was really hopeful that it was going to make a big difference. So get some help for yourself. Like if you've tried everything that you can think of, search Pinterest or Google, talk to your friends, search your mom groups, look at joining a program like mine, where you can get some like individualized help, because it doesn't have to be crazy every morning, I promise. I can't make a guarantee that it's going to like fix everything and you're never going to have a chaotic morning. That's just not realistic, but it will certainly help. So thank you so much for joining me today. This is a topic that I love talking about because I really have done a lot in our own family to help, and mornings are just so much more peaceful now. So if there's anything I can do to help other people experience that same sense of peace and figure it all out, then I'm happy to do so. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at This Dandelion Life. My website, of course, is thisdandelionlife.com. You can read my blogs there. There's some information for Canadian military families. And of course, if you click the Work with Mel tab, you can add your name to the list for season 2 of my online group mentorship program, which is happening in January of 2020. You can also email me anytime, or you can PM or DM me. My email is Melperrythementor at gmail.com. Thank you so much, you guys. Have a terrific day, and we'll see you next time on Tea Time with Mel.